What if that nagging feeling in the back of your neck was real? What if those hands reaching out from the dark that you believed were there were there? What if the monster in the basement really existed? And what if there was really something under the bed? Would you have the courage to face your fears?
Hello, brave souls. I'm your host, Paul Rondo, and today I actually want to try something different, and I want to talk about a haunted place from when I was a kid that I didn't even realize was an actual haunted place until today, really. The place I'm referring to is called the Seven Gates of Hell. It's in Athol, Massachusetts, which is around where I grew up. So, this is one of those stories that I heard when I was a little kid from, I'm going to guess, an older classmate or maybe just a person in a higher grade. I can't remember exactly where I've heard this. But I remember hearing that there were 7 gates or 7 structures out in the middle of the woods. They didn't specify what town. I didn't find that out until I got a little older today, realistically. And basically, the lore behind it from when I was a kid was that a cult used to operate out in the woods out there. And you'd end up going out into the woods. And the original fear was that the cult would get you. The further you get out to the gates, the cult might actually snatch you up and take you. And so other theories is that the further you go in, the weirder things tend to get. So you'll start hearing disembodied screams or voices. You'll start seeing things in the side of your what is it? You'll see things just outside of you, in your periphery. And so, from what I heard, the only people had only ever made it out till about the 6th ring, and then they freaked out or lost it or had to leave. Of course, all these upperclassmen pretended like they had been out there, but I'll be honest, I think for the most part, this was just a urban legend kind of thing in the town I grew up in, or in the area I grew up in. But, funny enough, I ended up stumbling upon this blogger post from 10 years ago. And it's the 7 Gates of Hell legend. And it goes like this. First and foremost, always get permission from the landowner before you set foot on someone else's property. It's a good idea. And when you have verbal permission, you can go and check it out. So, here we go. So, the 7 Gates of Hell is a local legend. Townspeople will tell you that it doesn't exist. Rumor has it there are 7 iron gates leading into a clearing. Once inside this gate, if you were to scream, no one on the outside would ever hear you. Legend has it that there was a cult out there many, many years ago that used this clearing for ceremonies to worship Satan, during which they would commit animal sacrifices, and rumor has it that human sacrifices were done too. If you visit this location at night, you can hear the animals' cries, and you will see figures hanging from the trees that surround it. And he says, I didn't visit the location at nightfall for the simple fact that it was hard enough locating it during daylight hours. Apparently this is a pretty hard place to find in general. So on October of 2011, his fiancée and him traveled to Athol, Massachusetts in search of the elusive gates to hell. What they did find, after about an hour of search in the back roads, was a lone cast iron gate that had been there for some time. Behind that gate was a path. They followed the path, and sure enough, there was a clearing. He says he wants to note that the day of the visit, the temperature was about 60 degrees, with a light fall breeze. And as they entered the clearing, the temperature began to rise, and it kept getting hotter. They actually broke out into a sweat, and they had to start taking off layers of clothes to cool off. He says it felt like it was about 105 degrees within minutes, so 60 to 105. It's crazy. There was no breeze there, and the dog that was barking across the street when they first came in was no longer audible. They couldn't hear him at all. And he says that the location was barren of any sound or physical life. And he said there was a heavy energy, a bad energy. So they decided to take a photo and then they would leave. And once they stepped out of the clearing, all sounds came back and the air was cool again, 60 degrees. He said he would plan to investigate the area more, and he said he'd keep you informed on what really lurks within the 7 gates of hell. And it looks like it didn't really go anywhere. Yeah, there's posts on this that go all the way out till 2017. Holy crap. So there's another anonymous post that happened on November 6, 2014. And it says, just took a trip up there today with some friends. Found our way down Doe Valley Road and found the iron gate on the right-hand side near the lake just before Briggs and Doe split. My first impression was that the gate wasn't old at all. I'm a welder and mechanic by trade and know quite a bit about vintage iron gates. This was nothing special, maybe welded together in the past 25 years. Even then, I didn't let the gate discourage me. So we found our way down the path beyond the gate to what appeared to be an abandoned summer home, just adjacent to the path, and up a hill to the left, nothing creepy there. Nor did the clearing next to it seem any bit odd or temperature indifferent. So continuing on down the path lower from the abandoned house, me and my friends found our way through tick-infested bushes. Yes, tick-infested. He said he found quite a few on him at the end of the trip. But not before they walked through a second stone entrance and down waterside to the pond. Still nothing odd other than normal New England stone boundary walls. So, continuing on, we found our way past a pair of rotted wooden posts with hearts carved out of the inner post area. May have been a wooden gate at some point, and worked our way further into the woods, surrounding the eastern side of the Davenport Pond past the heart post gate. We discovered for about another 3/4 of a mile, heading in southward fashion. They went down the trail until they went to Layton Road. They were confused due to this being the purported location entrance of the 7 gates of hell. I broke out Google Maps and do an aerial view of the location and paths we were working down to see what else might have been missed. Result: we covered as much area as possible and came to a sobering conclusion that we found nothing. And will not find anything in this area. No 7 gates, no demonized relics, no hell portals in a field, just a property abandoned less than 25 years ago that only ever so slightly lines up visually to the stories and rumors we've all heard. Now, I would like to believe that these 7 gates exist. I think we all want to believe it. But here's the clincher. Nobody living in the surrounding area, yes, the locals, have ever heard of it. We've all heard the story, but how do I know for sure? I took the liberty of knocking on locals' doors and asking respectfully if they knew anything about it. So, what really came down is that this guy tried to find the 7 gates of hell and had no luck. And like I said, I've had buddies of mine say that they've been out to it. They said that they checked it out. I personally have never gone out there and looked for it. It always sounded intriguing, but it always sounded kind of more of a pain in the butt than it was worth. And from what I'm hearing is that most of these locals have never heard of it, and they don't think it exists at all. There's no occult activity, there's no weirdness, and it's all a bit hokey. Oh, okay, maybe not. So there's other people that kind of responded to this guy, right? So I have a lady who wrote back in September 7th, 2021. So basically she reports the same thing that the author says. They went in, they didn't feel very comfortable. They had a very bad energy. The sound distortion was something that they are aware of. Apparently, if you take a car through it, your car will break down. She's had friends that have doors slam in their face, like car doors. They've had things sprint past them in the woods, and they've seen things hanging from the trees. So this person, which is the last one to respond, kind of lines up with the story as I have heard it as a kid. You know, where you slowly walk through this wooded area, and there are just weird things that happen to you, and the farther you get in, the weirder it gets, the worse it gets. And then apparently, if you're able to make it through to the last gate, the 7th gate, you will enter into hell. But as far as I know, no one's ever made it that far. It doesn't sound like people make it very far at all. But I thought this might be something kind of interesting for you guys. I Googled the crap out of this, and this one blogger post is really the only thing I found that has any kind of information about it. And honestly, this was like kind of a big deal where I grew up. But it just doesn't seem to have stood the test of time. Granted, this was 20 years ago. Well, actually longer than 20 years ago since I heard the story. So, yeah, I wonder if they're even telling the stories. But, yeah, but I hope you enjoy this. I know it's a little different than the normal Creepypasta story, but it was something I really wanted to get out there, and I thought it was interesting. So, I hope you enjoyed it. Come back next time for some more spooky stories. And as always, remember to always face your fears.